former Quidditch heroes. Before Harry's Hogwarts days, a few other notable characters graced the school's Quidditch pitch. Sirius Black's brother, Regulus, was seeker for Slytherin. Harry's own dad played for Gryffindor, and Charlie Weasley used to be Gryffindor Quidditch captain. Ginny won Gryffindor the Quidditch Cup in Half-Blood Prince. As well as the prestige from the win, she got the added pleasure of beating Ravenclaw, where Harry's ex-girlfriend, Cho Chang, was seeker. After the match, Ginny and Harry had their first celebratory kiss. Double win. Weasley is our king, Weasley is our king, he didn't let the quaffle in, Weasley is our king. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Harry's late father predicted Harry would be destined to play Quidditch. After discovering an old letter from Lillian Deathly Hallows, Harry read that Sirius got him a toy broomstick when he was 1 year old, and he ended up destroying half the house zooming around on it. According to the letter, James thought it was funny and that Harry would be a great Quidditch player. Little did he know his son would one day grow up to captain the Gryffindor Quidditch team. A pitch of the tallest order. Hundreds of seats were raised in stands around the pitch so that the spectators were high enough to see what was going on. At either end of the pitch were 3 golden poles with hoops on the end. They reminded Harry of the little plastic sticks Muggle children blew bubbles through, except that they were 50 feet high. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. During Harry's Hogwarts days, Lee Jordan was usually the commentator for school Quidditch matches. However, in what J.K. Rowling called a moment of blinding inspiration, she made Luna Lovegood the commentator for the last Quidditch match she wrote about, which was in Half-Blood Prince. "That was just a gift," she said. "It's the kind of commentary you'd do on a sports match." And Luna's performance was much to the disdain of Professor McGonagall. But now that big Hufflepuff player's got the quaffle from her, I can't remember his name, it's something like Bible, no. Buggins, it's Cadwallader, said Professor McGonagall loudly from beside Luna. The crowd laughed. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Gryffindor victories. During Harry's time at Hogwarts, his team, Gryffindor, won the Quidditch Cup in his 3rd, 5th and 6th years. The cup was cancelled in his 2nd year, due to the Chamber of Secrets attacks, and also in the 4th year, thanks to the Tri-Wizard tournament. Harry was actually only a part of his team winning the final once, in his 3rd year. In the 5th year, he was banned from playing, and in his 6th year, he was in detention with Professor Snape. McGonagall's grudge. Minerva McGonagall was a gifted Quidditch player in her youth and played for the Gryffindor team herself. After she was catastrophically fouled by Slytherin during her student days, her desire to always defeat Slytherin in the sport lived on when she became a professor. A snitch in time. Harry caught his first golden snitch in his mouth during a first-year Quidditch match. This turned out to be incredibly important years later, when Harry was presented with the same snitch in Dumbledore's will. Engraved across it were the words, "I open at the close." Harry discovered that it would only open when he was close to death, and whispered into it that he was about to die on his way to face Lord Voldemort. Inside the snitch was the Resurrection Stone, one of the 3 Deathly Hallows. Gryffindor win the Quidditch Cup. The tiny golden ball was held tight in his fist, beating its wings hopelessly against his fingers. Then Wood was speeding towards him, half blinded by tears. He seized Harry around the neck and sobbed unrestrainedly into his shoulder. Harry felt 2 large thumps as Fred and George hit him. Then Angelina, Alicia and Katie's voices, "We've won the cup." Tangled together in a many-armed hug, the Gryffindor team sank, yelling hoarsely, back to Earth. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. A safe game, honestly. According to Oliver Wood, nobody from Hogwarts has ever been killed by a bludger. So that's reassuring. A cheeky seeker. A glint of gold, a flutter of tiny wings, the snitch was circling the Gryffindor goalpost. Harry accelerated, eyes fixed on the speck of gold ahead, but next second, Cho had appeared out of thin air, blocking him. "Harry, this is no time to be a gentleman," Wood roared, as Harry swerved to avoid a collision. "Knock her off her broom if you have to." Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Malfoy loses his cool. "The forest?" he repeated, and he didn't sound quite as cool as usual. "We can't go in there at night, there's all sorts of things in there, werewolves, I heard." Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. A charming hut. Hagrid's hut is the comforting wooden cabin in which the Hogwarts gamekeeper lived for many years. The hut is situated not far away from the Forbidden Forest, Hagrid's favorite haunt for discovering all manner of terrifying beasties to call his friends, and the place where Harry, Ron and Hermione went to visit when they needed a chat and a cup of tea. Unfortunately, Hagrid's cooking left something to be desired. Outside the hut, Hagrid grew pumpkins that were sometimes larger than garden sheds. Make yourselves at home. There was only one room inside. Hams and pheasants were hanging from the ceiling, a copper kettle was boiling on the open fire, and in a corner stood a massive bed with a patchwork quilt over it. Make yourselves at home, said Hagrid, letting go of Fang, who bounded straight at Ron and started licking his ears. Like Hagrid, Fang was clearly not as fierce as he looked. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. A friend of the forest. Hagrid lived in a small wooden house on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. A crossbow and a pair of galoshes were outside the front door. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Always game. Hagrid lived in the Hogwarts grounds acting as gamekeeper ever since he was expelled in his 3rd year. Great man, Dumbledore. A bit o' help. Strictly speaking, Hagrid wasn't supposed to use magic, and yet his pumpkins for Halloween were mysteriously bigger than boulders. Interesting. Hogwarts rejects. Not all Hogwarts students make it all the way. Poor Hagrid was expelled in his 3rd year, but allowed to live on the school grounds. And during the rise of Lord Voldemort, new temporary rules were put in place to ban Muggle-born students from attending the school at all. Deep in the forest, the path was becoming increasingly overgrown, and the trees grew so closely together as they walked further and further into the forest that it was as dark as dusk. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. A cursed life. The Forbidden Forest was the setting for Lord Voldemort to drink the blood of a dead unicorn. The hooded figure turned out to be Professor Quirrell, who had been sharing his body with the Dark Wizard. However, as Firenze the Centaur pointed out, anyone who slays a unicorn will live a cursed life. He was not wrong. A popular forest. The Forbidden Forest, despite being forbidden, is entered in every single Harry Potter book apart from Half-Blood Prince. Acromantula. Aragog, the resident acromantula of the Forbidden Forest, had a wife called Mozart. See? Spiders can love too. Mars is bright tonight, Ronan repeated while Hagrid watched him impatiently. Unusually bright. Yeah, but I was me ain't anything unusual a bit near home, said Hagrid. So ye haven't noticed anything strange? Yet again, Ronan took a while to answer. At last, he said, the forest hides many secrets. A movement in the trees behind Ronan made Hagrid raise his bow again, but it was only a second centaur, black-haired and bodied and wilder looking than Ronan. Hello, Bane, said Hagrid. All right? Good evening, Hagrid, I hope you are well. Well enough. Look, I've just been asking Ronan, you seen anything odd in here lately? Only there's a unicorn been injured, would ye know anything about it? Bane walked over to stand next to Ronan. He looked skywards. Mars is bright tonight, he said simply. We've heard, said Hagrid grumpily. "Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone." Not so forbidden. Although its name suggests it is off-limits, many Hogwarts students find themselves in the nearby Forbidden Forest during detention. The forest is the home to many terrifying-sounding magical creatures, unless you're Hagrid, who loves them, naturally. It is a frequent source of fear to the nearby children, again, unless you're Hagrid. Among the forest's many mysteries, the likes of unicorns, hippogriffs, centaurs and acromantula dwell beyond its thick trees. In later years, the forest was also the home to Grawp, Hagrid's little but significantly bigger half-brother, and a rather feral flying Fordanglia, once owned by Arthur Weasley. It's a long story. Horsing around. A herd of centaurs live in the Forbidden Forest, and don't like it very much when humans try to infiltrate it. This did not bode well for Professor Umbridge, a notoriously prejudiced witch who called the centaurs half-breeds. This resulted in Umbridge being carried away by the angry centaurs, until Albus Dumbledore somehow managed to rescue her. We don't ask how. A very big little brother. Hagrid's half-brother, Grawp, lived in the Forbidden Forest, after Hagrid led him away from his mother's giant colony. According to Hagrid, Grawp was a bit on the runty side for a giant, only 16 foot. Oh, yes, tiny. Absolutely minuscule, Hermione replied. The murder of Mr. Crouch. Mr. Crouch, who had been acting as a judge for Hogwarts Triwizard Tournament in Harry's 4th year, was murdered in the Forbidden Forest. Harry and Victorcron discovered Crouch in a state of frenzy on the outskirts. It was later revealed he had been under the Imperious Curse, which sent him mad. When Harry ran to get help, Barty Crouch Jr. stunned him and killed his own father, transfiguring him into a bone and burying him in front of Hagrid's hut. Voldemort's threat. You have permitted your friends to die for you rather than face me yourself. I shall wait for 1 hour in the Forbidden Forest. 1 hour. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. A feral Fordanglia. Arthur Weasley's Fordanglia is one of the many magical creatures that lives in the Forbidden Forest. After Harry and Ron crashed the modified Muggle vehicle into the Whomping Willow, the Fordanglia took off, and was later discovered turned wild by the forest. There is nothing to suggest that the enchanted car isn't still out there, causing havoc among the trees. A secret path. The Whomping Willow was planted in Remus Lupin's time at Hogwarts. Later, we find out it was actually planted because of Remus, who used a passageway beneath the vicious tree to enter the Shrieking Shack in secret. There, he could transform into a werewolf privately and with dignity, sort of. So, how do you get past the Whomping Willow again? Well, the great tree has a small knot at its base which, when pressed, immobilizes it. Brilliantly, it was Crookshanks who managed to figure this out, pushing the knot with his paws. The death of the Nimbus 2000. And it hit, oh, Harry, it hit the Whomping Willow. Harry's insides lurched. The Whomping Willow was a very violent tree which stood alone in the middle of the grounds. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. A slightly unfriendly tree. The Whomping Willow is a particularly inhospitable tree that will lash out at anyone who dares go near it. Planted in the year that Remus Lupin arrived at the school, the tree was placed in Hogwarts to hide a secret passage to the Shrieking Shack, so Lupin could secretly transform into a werewolf via an entrance no other student was likely to find. Harry and Ron learned about the tree the hard way when they crashed Arthur's flying Fort Anglia into it, and were greeted with gnarled boughs and branches as thick as a python trying to pummel them. It means well, honestly. Whomping Willows get hurt feelings too. Professor Sprout's arms were full of bandages, and with another twinge of guilt, Harry spotted the Whomping Willow in the distance, several of its branches now in slings. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. The Willow's victims. This very surly tree has destroyed many things during the years. Harry's Nimbus 2000, the eye of a former Hogwarts student called Davy Gudgeon almost, not to mention Harry and Ron's egos when they crashed into it in their second year. The Hidden Hallow. We know the Forbidden Forest holds oh so many secrets, but since the events of Deathly Hallows, we know that the Resurrection Stone lies somewhere within, too. This is the infamous Hallow that can summon echoes from the dead, and Harry left it in the forest after summoning his parents, Sirius and Lupin, to give him emotional support during his final stand against Lord Voldemort. Narcissa's lie. Is Draco alive? Is he in a castle? The whisper was barely audible. Her lips were an inch from his ear, her head bent so low that her long hair shielded his face from the onlookers. Yes, he breathed back. He felt the hand on his chest contract. Her nails pierced him. Then it was withdrawn. She had sat up. He is dead. Narcissa Malfoy called to the Watchers. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Follow the spiders. Course, says Ron abruptly, as they strolled across the black grass. We might get to the forest and find there's nothing to follow. Those spiders might not have been going there at all. I know it looked like they were moving in that sort of general direction, but... His voice tailed away hopefully. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.